I want to give a huge thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Therapy isn't something to run away from, it's a vessel to run towards. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online, so break out your comfies. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time. Anytime. And schedule live sessions when it's convenient for you. No more fumbling to get a session on the calendar. You schedule based on when the time is right for you. If your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. Therapy changed my life for the better. Pun intended. And with BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and a more affordable price. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Rocky. That's betterhelp.com/Rocky. This episode and the wild night we're going to hear about today talks a lot about fear. Fear in the sense of your life and what to do with it. I hear so many people who are under 40. And by the way, 40 is not old to me. It's just older and wiser, and I'm simply using it as a midpoint marker. The stop in the marathon of life where volunteers pass out water while you run by. But I hear so many people under 40 call themselves too old and say it's too late. Too old for who? And too late for what? Whose timeline are you on? People over 40 say this as well, and they shouldn't either. I'm pretty sure you don't have to follow these arbitrary societal rules of where you should be and what you should be doing. There is no limit. If your body hurts, try and stretch. If you like a song, listen to it. Don't just not listen to it because the artist is younger than you and you've never heard them before. If you see yourself in the mirror, say, "What's up, homie? I love you so much. Let's go have an adventure." No one will make anything happen for you if you aren't putting one foot in front of the other towards whatever it is that you want. Things are scary. Taking chances is scary. But you're capable, my little puffin bird. Is there an absurd to the masses idea that you want to make a reality? You have to stop worrying about what people will think of you. Stop not believing in yourself and start believing in yourself. Make your own roadmap. It's not over, baby. It's just the beginning, so do it scared. Whatever your it is, do it scared.
It's time for
Duh. Welcome to the Rocky Rundown, where you get to learn a little bit about my week. Party God Squad, hello. Did you have a good week? I sure hope so. I had a good week, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a weird one. Are you listening right now? Because this is important. Stop knocking on bathroom doors while people are inside them, okay? On Tuesday, once in the morning and once in the evening at two different places, spaces, and times, I had people knock on the door while I was in the bathroom. The first, I could not have been in there for more than 1 minute. The first, I could not have been in there for more than 45 seconds. I was mid-pee stream. Yeah, be right out. If I could have said, "Be right out, you fucking impatient bitch," I would have. But that's not Zen. That's not kindness, and that's not operating from a place of love. The second time, as icon Cher Horowitz would have said, I was surfing the crimson wave. I had to take the pass, which that's already its own obstacle course to navigate in the comfort of your own home, never mind a public loo. Yeah, I'll be right out. What the fuck is actually going on with the audacity of humans and bathroom etiquette. In both these instances, I cannot stress enough how under a minute I was in there for. Because I feel humanity has forgotten how to be cool at all, I'm going to remind you how to behave if someone is in a single stall bathroom. Pass this message along to anyone who you think may need it. Wait. W-A-I-T. Wait. Wait. Wait till you see their dick outside of the door. Or try and open it like a normal person, and then once you see it's locked, don't knock, just wait. I know it's the very American way to control who pisses in what bathroom and for how long, but you didn't get there first. You can't Christopher Columbus your way into the goddamn stall and call it your land. Chill out. What does knocking accomplish, huh? I'm outside the bathroom, so awkwardly maneuver around in there now that I've knocked. It ends now. I'm not advising anyone say, I'm ripping my tampon out and I'll need approximately 3 more minutes before we uncomfortably do the changing of the guards, but thank you for alerting me like Helga's mouth-breathing stalker that you're out there waiting. I'll sing the ABCs extra loud while I wash my hands. Feel free to join in, you eager beaver. To quote Drake, an eager beaver is the collapse of a dam. Chill out, people. Speaking of chilling out, I was house and cat sitting all last week because people trust me with their homes and their animals. You hear that, listeners in Beverly Hills? And I'm convinced that cats can see a dimension we can't see. I know this because while I was chilling on the couch, the cat was following the air all around the room with his eyes to the ceiling. Look, if it was the floor or the wall, I might say maybe. Maybe he's following something in the floor or the wall that I can't hear. No. This was the air. For a while, too, he's just watching this ghost float around the apartment. Then here I go, watching the cat watch the ghost, both of us just eyes darting back and forth like that cat wall clock, you know the one. And while we're on the subject of clocks, my friends, who I was house and cat sitting for, didn't tell me they had a Christmas clock they keep up year-round that plays instrumental Christmas songs at the start of the hour. But at 11 o'clock on the dot that night, while I was alone watching the cat follow the air with its eyes, I wish they'd warned a bitch. Cool thing happened. I made a new friend. This is a person I see circumstantially a couple times a week, and we were talking about the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, particularly cast member Whitney Rose. Back in the fall, I went to this meet and greet drag show she was hosting, and he said, "Oh my God, I was at that show. I was right in the front row," to which I said, I was right in the front row. So we pull out our phones and we start looking at our pictures, and wouldn't you know, in one of his pictures, clear as day, was my hand. Unmistakably, undeniably, my long little hand. We had a moment. If this doesn't tell you everything you need to know about energy in that freeze frame moment, we didn't know each other then. We connect with people on our vibration. We attract people in our orbit and energy field. Maybe, whoa, plot twist, maybe there are no coincidences. Talk to people, learn about their interests, because you may have already shared a moment in time with them. Shout out to the conductor on the Metro North for being his freest self over the loudspeaker. This man was singing his way through every stop. I kid you not. At one point he sang, "You don't have to take yourself off of the train, but you gotta get off the train." It was nonsensical. No rhythm to it, just free singing. I think that's what they meant when they said well-behaved women rarely make history. And history was, in fact, made a couple nights ago. Dee and I went to a bar. We were there to listen to some live music. We smoked a J beforehand. She ordered a ginger ale. Me, a club soda. Yeah, I'm cool without drinking tonight. I don't want to feel hungover tomorrow, and one drink doesn't seem worth it, you know? She had other fun plans for us. She had this medical marijuana-grade liquid THC tincture. You drop a couple drops in your drink and you get a little stony baloney. Well, I had too many drops. I had too much. That's right, even for the fearless leader of the Party God Squad, I was fucked all the way up till 2 p.m. the next day. It hit me like a ton of feathers. I look around, the bar is full of people. It was some guy's birthday. And when I tell you, the people that were singing to him, dragged this version of Happy Birthday out like you've never heard. It was about to be his next birthday by the time they finished. That's what I was thinking. But then Dee put one finger up and waved it in a circle and said, "Wrap it up already." To me, obviously, not to the entire bar. And that's exactly what I was thinking. Move it along, choir. We can't even make out this man's name. You're dragging it out so bad. And because she said what I was thinking, I started laughing. Hard. Like Joaquin Phoenix on the bus. Hard. And anyone knows me knows I'm a laugher. Laughter's my middle name. Actually, it's Lee. The after's silent. But this was too high for even me. Arguably the highest I've ever been in my life. I had to leave. The Rocky shakes were in full effect, and I had to keep thinking about keeping my eyes open, not because I was tired, but because they were so puffed out. They looked like Missy Elliott in the Rain Supa Dupa Fly music video. Look it up for reference, because you gotta know that piece of history. I was staying at my parents' house that night, and the next door neighbors, they were just having a fun little party. My high ass thought that the neighbors were scaling our house. I was so paranoid, I turned all the lights off downstairs, and I was peeking out the window like I was about to have to defend my land. I felt like the Handmaid's Tale lady in the movie Us, surrounded. Spoiler alert, no one was scaling the house. It was all good. But for the love of God, measure your droplets out. It's medical now, and it hits different. That brings us to Rocky's highest thoughts, my most stoned thoughts of the week. Number 1, Kesha has a song where she says, 1, 2, 3, 4. U2 has a song where they say, 1, 2, 3, 14. And that just makes me want to thank the number 4. Not only are you versatile and willing to go with the flow, secure with yourself and confident, happy with change, you are easily the sexiest number there is. Number 2, people stay mad at millennials, but we had really toxic programming growing up. In the first Sex and the City movie, Samantha shows up at Carrie's door from LA, and she has about a centimeter, if that, of belly fat hanging over her jeans, and the 3 women gasp when they open the door. And Samantha then has to explain why her stomach isn't perfectly flat while she shovels chocolate cake down her gullet and her 3 best friends stare at her in horror. So give us a goddamn break if from time to time we want to use a filter, or if from time to time we boomerang, or if from time to time we want to talk about boy bands. Number 3, do you think we'll ever have a legitimate rehab for social media? Number 4, is Toto's Africa just Sweet Caroline for stoners? My guest this week is comedian, improviser, rapper, singer, clown, and actor Ralf Jean-Pierre, also known as Precious Gorgeous. Ralph hits us with one of the most unique, wild stories ever told on this pod. I've never heard anything like it. Ralph hosts the podcast No Suggestion, and he's a member of the New York City iconic legendary improv group North Coast. He's got 3 albums out for your listening pleasure, and a new single dropping the 3rd week of May. His wild word was wilderness, but whether you're inside or out there in the wilderness, this story has something for you. If you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can follow me at Wild Nights with Rocky on TikTok and Instagram, at Wild Nights Pod on Twitter. If you want to watch extended interviews with all of my guests, please subscribe on YouTube. You can support this show for $2 or $5 a month by joining my Patreon. $5 members get an Irish lesson from me. They are inconsistent, but they are there. A big thank you and a future thank you to everyone who's written and everyone who will write a review when this episode is over. It really does make a difference. And now, please enjoy my Wild Nights conversation with Ralf Jean-Pierre. Ralf, welcome. Thank you for doing the podcast.
Oh man, I'm so excited to be here. I'm so honored. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, honestly, I'm honored. The pleasure's all mine. You had me on your podcast and I had an absolute blast. Now, our podcasts are a little bit on opposite ends of the spectrum. From yours, we were in this like beautiful studio in Brooklyn. It was like all legit. We were standing up, we were acting, we were doing improv. It was really cool. We're over the Zoom, obviously. We're chilling, we're sitting, and it's gonna be a little bit more casual vibes, but I'm just honored that you're doing my
Indeed.
show.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for doing no suggestion. I was just thinking I want to figure out a time and a place to have you and your brother on together.
Oh, that
Um,
would be
I,
really fun.
yeah, I would love to do that.
He's a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
fan
that
of
would.
yours.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, and yeah, your episode is still like one of my favorite episodes, and yeah, I'm so glad to be on here to tell a wild story or of some sort.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
great.
where we recorded your episode, I had only been so I used to live in Bushwick for a couple years, and just these past couple years, I have some friends who are still out there. And last summer, a couple different friends wanted to go to this bar, Syndicated, and I had never been there before. And I went there for a birthday party. I went there for a couple like late night hangs. And my friends just happened to be going to that bar the night I came to to do your podcast. So I'm hanging out with them, and they were all like, well, we'll walk you over because it seems like the radio station is pretty close to here, which was totally coincidental. Totally. I mean, I'm
Mm,
in Bushwick so rarely that the fact that I had to do this recording and was hanging out there and they were right around the corner from each other was beyond convenient. But
wow.
we started walking over to the radio station, and you know how and this is not just Bushwick, this is anywhere in New York. You turn one corner and it goes from like busy bustling to industrial.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
would describe that because where the radio station was pretty industrial. I would describe that as the wilderness of the city.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
So Ralph's wild word was wilderness, one of the more
Yeah.
challenging ones to work it in, but somehow the kid did it.
Wow, breast
Um,
and shoulders.
so Ralph, take us into your wild night story, wilderness.
Um, so this story is actually many, many nights. It's about 8 months of
Wow.
nights, maybe more actually, because it was, yeah, it was probably more than a year, but the actual so in 2011, had been living back in New York for a few years. I'm from here, but I went away to college. I went away to art. I didn't. I'm from here. I went to high school somewhere else in Florida, and I went to college in Georgia. I went to art school, and then I moved here, obviously with a bunch of my friends. And I had a best friend who was living here. His name was Tommy Rachel, and he was we just hung out together all the time. We did stuff. We did everything together. And just ran around the city as young 20 somethings trying to figure out New York, you know.
Yeah.
And it's really weird. I think that year was like my first year getting like a really cool job. Like I had a teaching artist job. I forget what company I was teaching for, and I was like making a little bit of money for my the first time in my life.
Hmm.
So I wanted to move out of I moved out of the apartment that I was in to move into like a house in Bed-Stuy. I moved in with
Hmm.
like this commune of freaking vegan hipsters.
Yeah.
And um and and I moved in this room because it was like a big room because my dream has always been like to have my own. I've still never done it. Oh, I kind of did it, to have my own space where I could uh teach improv classes or something in that space. So I moved in the space. I had like a couple days overlap uh between getting to move in and moving out of my other place, moving out of the
Gotcha.
place I was in.
Yeah.
So I stayed with my friend Tommy. I just slept on the floor in his room for a couple nights. Uh and the day I moved out, moved into this house in Bed-Stuy. I remember Tommy was like, he didn't want me to leave because he liked hanging out with me. I love hanging out with him. And I'm at work. I move out and I'm at work the next morning and I get a call from Tommy's roommate, and the call is Tommy fell off the roof.
What?
Yeah. And I spent the next 4 or 5 days in Bellevue Hospital with all of our friends as basically Tommy is dying. And so Tommy
Was it
passed.
and if you don't want to go into detail, that's okay, but
Sure.
was it just hanging up on the roof and it was a freak accident, or was he partying up there, or was it just like
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Okay.
It remains a mystery to this day. I know that I would go up to the roof all the time with Tommy so he could go
Uh-huh.
up and smoke.
Uh-huh.
It was a rickety, wonky roof in Bushwick.
Yeah, one of those
Um,
like squishy roofs.
yeah,
Yeah, I
and
know. Yeah.
uh, uh, and it was raining that night. I know
Mm-hmm.
that, and he might have been drinking. He might not have been. Whatever.
Right, right, right.
Uh, and so Tommy passed away. He was my best friend in New York, and he
Jesus.
passed, and it was so sudden. And I'm very project driven all my life. I grew
Yeah,
up like like from 7 to about 17, all I did was read and draw and write comic books.
yeah,
Like that's all I did all the time. And then I got into acting and I got into rapping. So like I'm making songs. I'm doing I'm in a play. I'm always very project oriented. And Tommy passed. It was the first person of significance in my life that I was close to who passed away. I was probably like 27.
yeah.
And I just found myself like adrift. Like I didn't have a project to do. I didn't know what to do. And so I'm like, freak out. I move out of the freaking vegan hipster's house. I moved to my pastor's house in Bay Ridge.
Uh-huh.
I was just kind of like lost and I didn't know what to do. And you know what I mean? It wasn't even that I was sad. I just didn't know what I was supposed to be doing because I usually have like a project to do.
Yeah, and
And
also this thing happens to you and Tommy's kind of like this safety net.
yeah,
I have the friends where it's like, yeah, I just want to be around you so much. I will literally we'll pop an air mattress on the ground and I will lay at the foot of your bed just so we can continue hanging out. Like those kind of friendships, especially as you get older, are invaluable. Those moments in your 20s are like I'm like getting emotional thinking of it. Just it's such a crazy thing to hear, but those moments with those people are they're big. So that's crazy. Yeah. So you probably were feeling like your tent pole was just off its rocker.
yeah, it's really that's odd because I'm going through a similar situation. Nobody died, but a similar
Uh-huh.
situation in my life now where I had someone in my life who was like we were best friends and
Oh,
now we're separated. And that was like Tommy was the person who was like, this guy gets me more than anyone else in the city gets me at
yeah,
least,
yeah.
and I got him and Tommy is just so funny and so cool and is just so yeah, so I was just like, yeah, I didn't have the person I could just reach out to. The person I would want to talk to about this
Yeah.
was not available, you know. So, but yeah, it wasn't like a depression or anything. I was just like, what am I supposed to do? Because it's always so clear to me what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
That's a like a blessing I have in my life that it's always very clear to me what the next thing I should be working on is.
You
Like
know your purpose in the moment.
yeah, I really that's a way that I feel very lucky and blessed. So I'm like lost. And a couple of things happened. One, I was at this moment, as a fellow improviser,
Mm-hmm.
I was in a mode. Oh, like improv to me is about acting first and comedy second.
Yeah.
So I'm always thinking about like, oh, I'm gonna play all these different characters. That's what I was really into as a younger actor. I'm gonna play different, transform, play different characters. So I knew that was on my mind. And I had just read this book called No Applause, Just Throw Money. And I'm also like involved in the clown scene. And I was thinking a lot about vaudeville and
Okay.
like having an act. Like I've always been jealous of stand-ups as an improviser because they just have an act that's in their pocket that they can just go and do.
Right.
So there was that was in my mind. And yeah. So and also when I was in college, I uh I remember hearing about there were like punk kids who did like long distance bike tours,
Okay.
like and would ride city to city and state to state on their bicycle. And I was like, that is crazy. Is that possible? Is that real? And so around that time, John Leguizamo's show Ghetto Clown was coming out. And I
Okay.
remember seeing a commercial for that and just watching that in my pastor's basement, just like trying to figure out my life, just like lost. And then um and I love John Leguizamo. And
Yeah.
then this idea felt like it fell on me all of a sudden. There was
Okay.
also a last thing, which was like I was in a mode in my life at that time where if I this is a big part of it. And it really didn't come from this didn't come from like a big life moment. This came because there was like so many women that I was in love with and that I
Mhm.
liked, and I didn't move because I was that afraid of rejection. And
Got it.
so my idea was, this was like another thing in my life that me and Tommy connected on. I was like, if I'm afraid of something, I have to do it. So I
Yes.
was just like jumping over things, and like I was doing like crazy shit. And like if I felt like I needed to talk to someone, I would talk to someone. I would like make eye contact on the train and just hold it, like not confrontationally, just like if I was afraid of it, I would do it immediately.
Yes.
So that was
Yes.
also like a mode I was in for like a few years. And so that was a thing. And then I remember I was just sitting there in like this chair in the basement, and all of a sudden this whole idea fell on me. I'm gonna ride my bicycle around the United States and perform Shakespeare on the streets.
Okay.
Um, and like the whole idea just fell on me. And then immediately I was like, why would I do that? That sounds insane.
Of
I'm
course.
gonna die doing that. I don't know. I've never left the East Coast. Like
Yeah.
that I don't need to do anything like that. Like I thought about it for a little while and then I was like, this is crazy. And then I just thought, if I had to describe Tommy's like kind of like a young Christopher Walken. Like
Okay.
he was a guy who like he wore dress shoes with his jeans and always tucked his shirt in. And he's
Gotcha.
very like he would grab you on the shoulder and be like, "What's shaking, man? What's going on? We hitting the
Yeah.
town tonight?" He's that this kind of special character. And so I was just thinking like that idea fell on me and I was like, I am not doing that. That sounds insane, Ralph.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that. And then I just had like some sort of reverie, this dream of like telling Tommy about this idea, and was like, I had this idea to do this, ride my bicycle around the United States and perform Shakespeare. Like that's crazy. Like I don't, and I feel like I'm just building momentum in New York, and I have this cool job, and like I don't need to leave the city to go
Yeah.
do this and risk my life for this crazy. Like this is so stupid and so crazy. It's so dangerous, and who knows if it even is possible. You
Yeah.
know, if it even will work. And I remember saying all this to him in my head.
Yeah.
Him turning to me and going, "When you leaving?"
Wow.
And I could not turn back from there.
Mhm.
So I reached out to my colleague that I still work with, my friend Jolie Tong. She's a professor at Brooklyn College
Uh-huh.
who she left Brooklyn College and just got. I can't say anything about this, but she's
Gotcha.
my colleague at Brooklyn College. Um, or she was at the time. She was working at Brooklyn College. I was a teaching artist,
Got it.
and I was like, Jolie, we work on stuff together. She was the first person to hire me in theater in New York. And I was like, Jolie, I have this idea to ride my bicycle around the United States and do Shakespeare. And she was like, this sounds insane, Ralph. I have to go home. We met up like somewhere to talk about this. And she's like, this sounds insane. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was still like trying to figure out how to do this. I'm like reaching out to friends. I had a friend I knew who did bicycle touring. So I was like reaching out to him and I was like, how,
Yeah.
like,
Getting your resources out there. Now, were you somebody who you had Shakespeare in your back pocket? Or would
uh,
this be like, okay, I'm gonna go around the country and do Shakespeare, but I gotta memorize a bunch of sonnets?
I had nothing in my back pocket. Nothing.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. That changes the game for me. Okay.
Yeah, there was not an ounce of anything. And I didn't know what Shakespeare I was gonna do.
Yeah.
I knew one thing, which is I wasn't gonna do monologues. I was gonna do scenes. So I'm like
Oh.
playing all the different characters in the scenes. I did scenes.
Okay.
So I'm Hamlet. I'm the ghost. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I knew that I wasn't gonna get out there and just do monologue. Nobody's gonna care. And
Yeah.
I just oh, so here's another thing I just read this book that changed my life. It was called Besides the Travesties, No Applause, Just Throw Money About Vaudeville. I read this other book called Free for All by Kenneth Turin, I believe.
Okay.
And it's an oral history of Joseph Papp and the New York Shakespeare Festival and the public theater.
Gotcha.
So Shakespeare in the Park,
Yeah.
and like I didn't know anything about Joe Papp, and he just became my hero because he was very much like, not only am I gonna do free Shakespeare in New York City for the people of the city, free, it's gonna be like it's not gonna be I'm just doing Shakespeare. It's Meryl Streep, it's George
Yeah.
C. Scott, it's Morgan, it's the best Shakespeare, the
The
best
greats.
directors, yeah, it's the like entertaining. Like
Yeah.
this shit is gonna be dope. Like he's also the guy who created Chorus Line.
Oh,
And
okay.
you know, what I mean, he's like, this is entertainment. I'm not just Shakespeare. This is fucking rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I
So you
knew
tell
that
your
what I
friend.
was gonna do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had this idea in my head of like I knew I wanted it to be entertaining. So I was like, I'm gonna do scenes. So I tell Jolie, Jolie's like, I'm sorry, Ralph, this is crazy. She writes
Yeah.
me an email. She says, Ralph, I know I told you no, and this idea was crazy. I was offered a job around that same time when you asked me this, maybe right after, to direct a play that I've always wanted to direct. And I said no to it. And then an hour later, I realized, why did I say no to that play? Oh, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of it.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think we should do this project. Let's do it.
She was
And then
projecting a little.
yeah, well, she was just scared. She was scared.
Yeah.
I was scared of it.
Yeah.
It sounded crazy, but she was like, it's not right to turn away from something just because it's scary.
No.
That's probably a good reason to do it. And so she was like, let's do this. And then she's a genius. She was like, and the theme of these scenes that we find should be fear. So from there, a couple things happened. I started to do a Kickstarter to raise money to buy what I needed, which is a touring bicycle. You can't just really tour the country on a regular bicycle. You need a touring bicycle. It has a certain length to carry weight, and
Okay.
like it has a certain length so that your feet don't kick your bags.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so I need, and those are expensive. I needed to raise about $5,000 to get one.
Five
So
thousand dollars.
yeah, and this is the
Wow.
era of Kickstarter. Yeah, to get the bike, to get the bags, and to get everything I needed. And this is the era. This is like right when Kickstarter was coming around, like 2000, 9, 10, 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm start that. Then me and Jolie just start reading Shakespeare plays, reading Shakespeare play after Shakespeare play to try to find scenes that fit this theme of fear that we had found. And then this was like August. And then we just set about just like working and learning and rehearsing these scenes. And like our goal, we'd like develop something that we like to call Brooklyn Shakespeare. That's like very physical and very like, we didn't adapt it. It's like Shakespeare's actual words. But I was
Mm-hmm.
like, and I was right. Like, I'm going to do this for like hillbillies and Louisiana, which I did do.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like this has to be like exciting to watch and connected to, and I'm coming from a background also of, I went to college for theater, but I'm coming from a background of improv and clown.
Yeah.
So like I want to be funny and I want to be engaging and I want to be like, what I mean? I don't want this to be just I'm reciting something. I want people to be like, oh wow, what I mean?
In the
So we're like,
moment.
yeah. So we're
Mm-hmm.
like working on this way of and I'm playing all the characters. Nobody's helping me. So we just worked on this way of performing it that was like would be as engaging as possible. And I memorized these 7 Shakespeare scenes from a bunch of different plays: Romeo
Yeah.
and Juliet, Julius Caesar, Macbeth, I forget what else, maybe a 12th Night was in there.
Mm-hmm.
um and so we just work on just memorizing these scenes. So to put them in my back pocket, like you were saying, there was nothing there before. We found the scenes, I memorized them. And then so that was August, and pretty much by I flew. Then what I did was I went to high school in Florida, which is where most of my family lived. So
Okay.
I took my bike and I flew to my mom's house. I took my no, I didn't have the bike yet. I flew to my mom's house in Florida with the Kickstarter money that I'd raised. I managed to just barely raise the money.
Okay.
I think actually I tried to get 10,000, it didn't work, and I cut it to 5, and I had people redonate, and I had the 5.
Gotcha.
and and I flew to my mom's house in Florida because the idea was this was the end of January. So I fly to Florida and I ride west through the South, um, which is actually dumb because the winds are against you the whole way.
Yeah.
But but it's warm. So I flew to Florida. I bought the bike. I like spent a couple weeks like rehearsing in my mom's house, like and like learning to camp. I'd also never been camping before.
Right.
So I like am camping in my mom's backyard, like trying to prepare for this trip. Like nothing about it have I ever done before. I've never
Right.
street performed before. I've never done a solo show before. I've done some Shakespeare and I'm a rapper, so I have some facility with that. But like so much of this never I've done some stand up for, but like I'd never been camping. I'd never been on a solo bike tour. I'd never left the East Coast. I'd never, any of this stuff. I get there, I buy the bicycle, and then I just I have my mom the bike thing and I have her drive me 100 miles away to Tampa, Florida,
Okay.
so that I can't just turn back. If I
Okay.
start riding like just from my mom's house, I go 5 miles or 10 miles, whatever I can do that day. I'm like, this is crazy. Send me back home. So I was
Yeah.
like, drive me to my buddy's house in Tampa. Actually, Tommy's ex-roommate, because she moved out after he passed.
Yeah.
She lived in Tampa. I went to her house. That's where I
Okay.
started my tour. And I was with her like a couple days to visit, like 3 days, and then I left and I took off from Tampa, Florida. I forget what day. It might have been February 1st.
Okay.
I took off from Tampa, Florida, and I just started riding. And there's a lot of milestones in between that we can get into. But
Yeah.
I rode from Tampa, Florida to San Diego, California.
Wow.
I rode from San Diego, California to Seattle, Washington. Then I flew from Seattle to Chicago, and then I rode from Chicago back to New York.
Okay. So I have some in between questions.
Yep.
You leave Tampa.
Mm.
How soon after you bike out of Tampa do you make your first stop? And then, second part of that question, what compelled you to stop? Because you didn't really you had a route planned?
Yeah, I knew what the big cities were,
Okay.
so I'm like heading toward those cities as like sort of like uh just like I don't know,
Markers.
milestones or
Yeah.
markers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the basic route I'm taking, but there's so much in between every city and town.
So your
Um,
first stop, I'm sure you remember the first and the last are probably the two you remember the most, right?
Not really, not
No,
really.
no, it's just. But
The
what was
first
the first one?
and when you say stop, you mean performance.
Yeah, you make your stop and you do your performance.
Okay, that probably doesn't happen. No, that happens like the first. That happens in Tampa.
Okay.
So in Tampa, I'm hanging out with my friend Erica, who was Tommy's roommate. I do a performance there. At that time, I thought I needed to like chalk out an area to do my performance. We're in Ybor City in Tampa.
Uh-huh.
I chalk out a space on the ground. I try to. It's terrible. It's abysmal. Like
Yeah.
nobody cares. I'm scared. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm waiting for permission from somebody to perform.
Yeah.
It's a mess. It's nothing. So that was kind of like my first performance. After that, I don't think I perform again for maybe 2 months.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just
So you just
I'm just
biking.
riding. Yeah, I'm just riding and terrified. I happened to in the first like 2 weeks meet two other riders
Wow.
who are more experienced than me. One of them is a guy. The other guy I can't remember is a white dude, really scrappy white kid.
Uh-huh.
And then he introduced me to a very wiry, um, like insane, like insane, like a stoic black man named Wilson Wilson. And
Okay.
this guy has a tiny chihuahua that he's traveling with. And he's like, yeah, I rode here from Baltimore. I do 250 miles a day in the snow. Like this guy, yeah, riding
Yeah.
250 on a bicycle. Like
With
this
the
guy was insane.
Chihuahua.
Yeah. So they taught me how to ride because I didn't know anything.
Okay.
So I'm riding with them for 2 months and I'm like trying to build up the nerve to get up and perform. And I can't do it.
Right.
And I kind of do a couple of little performances here and there that I can't really remember. They're not good. And I'm trying to remember what was the first. This was the first real performance I did. The first one for me that felt like, oh, I'm okay. This is it. I'm in Louisiana with the white dude and Wilson Wilson, and we have had an adventure in Louisiana. We stayed with another friend of mine from college, and I'd never been to Louisiana before. I don't think I really performed there, but it was Mardi Gras, in the middle of Mardi Gras.
Oh my
We actually
God.
We show up, we ride from, I think, Biloxi, Mississippi to New Orleans. We miss like 2 thunderstorms. At one time, we like, oh, it's safe. We get out to ride. The thunder breaks on above us, and we're like, oh shit, the rain is coming. Like thunder is like right above, lightning is right above us. This guy pulls up in a pickup truck. You guys need a ride? And we're like, yeah. And all three of us throw our bikes in the backseat of his car. We get into his car. He's got his dog in there, and we get in. Um, I'm a little afraid of dogs at this point too, which is wild because I'm riding a bicycle, and dogs will just come out and chase you.
Yeah.
And he just picks and drops us off. He drops the white boy off somewhere. He's going to stay somewhere else. And me and Wilson go to my friend's house in deep in New Orleans. She's not answering her phone. And little do I know, because it's Mardi Gras, I show up. Finally, she picks up her phone. We ride to her place. He drops us off outside New Orleans. Me and Wilson ride. We've been riding all day through thunderstorms. We're exhausted. I get 2 flats on the way to my friend's house. I don't know how to change them. Wilson has to change them for me. Wilson has a fever and a cold. Like, and finally, my it pops a third time. My tire pops a third time, like 2 blocks from our house. So I push my heavy bike to her house. We knock on the door. We open the door. There's like 24 half-naked women, body painted.
What a greeting.
Yes. So they're like, come on in, rest. We might be going out. You can go out with us if you want. Blah, blah.
I know Wilson was happy he found you.
Yeah. So, they give us some food and we're just hanging out and we're just like, this is great. I have pictures of this all up on my, I have a Tumblr blog that has all this stuff. And but then we're in New Orleans and then we go to some other town in Louisiana and those dudes are just like being like, just mean and outriding me and leaving me and coming back. And I'm just like, and I'm not performing and I feel guilty that I'm like doing the riding, I'm getting up to 60, 80 miles a day.
Wait,
like,
you're saying
riding.
Wilson and the white dude were being kind of mean to you?
Yeah, they are not taking my project seriously, which is not their job to. It's my job to take it seriously.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of lost in what's going on because I'm still trying to get my bearings doing a bike tour.
Yeah.
So at some point, something comes over me, just like I think I gotta separate from these guys. Like I think I know how to do this right now. I gotta separate from them, and I separate from them, and then I remember them be like, "Are you sure, dude?" And I was like, "Yeah, I gotta go." This is all coming back to me now as I'm saying it. It's all because yeah. So it's all coming back to me now. So I'm like, yeah, I gotta separate from this is one of the scariest things that because I'm so comforted to have these 2 guys with me, like, and we're riding together. Riding alone is like, again, I'm not a camper, I'm not a wilderness person. I don't have any of this. Sometimes I gotta camp. Sometimes you find that there's an app called Warm Showers. It's like what is it's like it's one of these apps for travelers, specifically for bicycle travelers. So you can find other people who do bike tours and they'll be like, hey, you can stay at my house. So you have that. Or sometimes I'd go into a hotel, but like I don't really have money to do that. So it's either camping alone in some secluded part of some small town or something, or nothing. Like, first of all, so I got to get comfortable with camping because it's the cheapest and best viable option. But camping alone is much different than with 2 other dudes. So I'm like terrified, but I'm like, I gotta leave these guys because I have a mission. And so the day I take off from them, I'm like so conflicted. I start riding and I'm riding down this like hillbilly like area of Louisiana. And I ride past this like junky beat up house. And there's 3 people sitting on the front porch who look like they probably might have been on meth. Like, and I just speed past them like, oh shit, let me get out of here. And then about a block past their house, I stop and I go, I have to perform for them. And I turn around and I ride back and they're sitting there on the porch and I go, hey, and meanwhile, I'm a black man in Louisiana and this is, Mitt Romney is running for president at this time.
Yeah.
They elect like it's, and I go, hey, I'm very sweaty and very dirty also. Hey, I was calling myself the spear bearer.
Okay.
As a pun, right? Because the spear carrier is like the lowest rung of any play, right? You carry a
Right.
spear, so I'm the spear bearer, and I go, I'm the spear bearer. I'm gonna perform a one-man Shakespeare scene for you. I don't want anything from you. You don't have to give me any money or anything. It's gonna be like maybe 5 minutes long. I'm gonna do a scene from a Shakespeare play. I hope you like it. I don't want anything from you. Will you let me perform on your front lawn? And they're like, all right, dude. And so I just launch into like a Macbeth scene or something, or a Hamlet scene, and I do the whole scene for them. And they're kind of just like, that was great. That was great. Tammy, get him some soda. What is that? Oh my God, he died. And oh my God, it's so crazy. I felt sorry. You know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
repeating the story back to me, and like somebody brought me some soda and somebody else gave me some change. And that was the moment I was like, oh, this is possible. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can I can do. Then that's when the tour. That's like probably 2.5 months in, and that's when the tour really started in earnest. And I just started performing as much as I could everywhere, all these places that I went. I performed, I think, in an Indian reservation in New Mexico. I
Mm-hmm.
performed at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. I performed in a homeless shelter. I performed where else did I'm trying to think of like all the places I performed. People put like book shows around me. I performed at my friend's theater in Las Vegas. I performed like just any people's porches. Like,
Yeah.
and I performed one time. There was a guy who was just like sick and dying of emphysema. Somebody brought me to his house in New Mexico. I performed for him in his room. He's like on his bed.
Wow.
Um, I performed for just like homeless guys just sitting there drinking. I just performed as much as I could everywhere I could, all those places that I went. Um, yeah.
Wow. That is so incredible. I've never, ever heard a story like that. I've never heard a story like that.
And there's a lot of other stuff. I fell in love on this trip.
In what town?
Okay, so this is a really good story, and it's funny because I'm still in touch with this lady. We never ended up really getting together. Um, I was in San Francisco
Mm-hmm.
visiting a friend from college there on the on the tour and like going around performing. And like uh by this point I'm 27, and like I'm like probably what you would call romantic. I've never really had a real girlfriend. I'm
Mm-hmm.
27, 28. And I always it's always like a very particular thing in my mind that I'm looking for. And so I'm on this bike, and I'm like, I think I'd been performing. I was like out somewhere, some strip by the water in San Francisco. That's like a tourist place. I think it was like heading toward the Tenderloin, actually, which is like not the best part of the San Francisco. But I'm
Okay.
like out there, and there's just people walking by, and I just see this like girl walk by with like kind of curly brown hair in front of her eyes. And I'm just saying, man, what she is gorgeous. And I just like, and she kind of looked at me like, but I just like felt something, and she
Yeah.
walked past, and I was just like, I am afraid to fuck. I have to go talk to her because I
Yeah,
know
if
that
I'm
I'm afraid.
afraid.
And I go and talk to her, and we ended up talking for like 10, 15 minutes. And then I kind of tell her my story, and she's like, do you want to hang out tonight? And then we like meet up later and hang out. And it's at first not going well, and then we're sitting there talking, it's kind of not going that great. But then like the sprinklers come on us, and we run. And then really, so by the end of the night, we're like holding hands.
Yeah.
And she's visiting America from France. She's a French girl. And yeah, I'm in San Francisco for like probably 5 days, and we just meet and hang out a bunch of times. Um and then we like keep, and then I have to leave and she has to leave. and then we just keep hanging out and keep talking. And uh I get to Seattle, and she she's gone to Chicago from San Francisco to like spend some time there. And
Okay.
I'm in Seattle and I'm exhausted from, I've ridden from Tampa, Florida. I've ridden like half the circumference of the United States.
Yeah.
And I'm like not able to recuperate. I'm like so exhausted. So
Wow.
I
Even if
can't,
you're resting and nothing is giving you your energy
nothing,
back.
nothing. I can't get it. I can't get my energy back up. So like I'm like I have to go home, and I figure out a way like at some I figure out my way to some bus stop outside of Seattle and like scrounge up. I do another Kickstarter to raise the money to fly home. And I fly back home to my mom's house, and I'm like, I'm not done. I just have to try to rest. I think I ended up resting for like 2 weeks,
Uh-huh.
and I have to go back out. And the plan was, my biggest hero in life is Prince. He's my biggest hero. It's
And why
Prince and
wouldn't
Joe
he
Papp.
be?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Prince.
Prince is
Um,
Prince is the shit.
Yeah. So my plan is, okay, I'm not gonna fly all the way back, because if I fly all the way back to Seattle, I
Hmm.
won't make it back to New York before the winter, and I'm not
Yeah.
prepared for that. So I'm like, I'm gonna fly back to Minneapolis.
Hmm.
But this French girl is in Chicago for another week or so.
Okay.
So I just let Prince down. And I
Yeah.
just go, I can't go to Minneapolis. I gotta go to Chicago because I don't know if I'll ever see her again.
As many love songs as that man wrote, I think he understands.
Yes, yeah. So I back to Chicago, and then like me and this girl, her name is Cassandra. I don't think she'll mind me saying her name. And we just meet and hang out, and like kind of finish like just like falling for each other. And like I'm performing and all this stuff, and she got to see me perform and stuff. And yeah, it was like I think the first time in my life, like me meeting someone who like understood a woman who like kind of understood me in the same kind of way that somebody like Comedy did.
Yeah.
Like she got what I was about, and I got what she was about. And so much so that we're still in touch today. And
Good.
and I can't remember all the details.
Right.
But yeah, so that happened, and so I went to Chicago and stayed with some friends there and did that. And then uh I left and rode back. I haven't seen her in person since. I would like to, but uh yeah, I left Chicago and to rode back to New York. It took me another 2-3 months.
Now, on your ride back from Chicago to New York, were you performing again?
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. I performed the day I rode into New York.
Yeah.
I think I performed maybe at Central Park or something. Yeah.
You get back to New York, do you find like that? Do you feel fulfilled afterwards?
I mean, the first thing that happens is I get like a massive fever and flu, and I can't move or anything for 4 days.
Okay.
I didn't get sick once on the tour, except for the fatigue,
Okay.
but I didn't get sick once on the tour. I came home and I could not do anything for 4 days. I'm knocked
Gotcha.
out.
Hmm.
And then I come back, and like, I don't remember when you told me you came around the pit.
I started at the pit in January 2011.
Okay. So yeah, so you were around. Like I
Hmm.
was like in the improv scene, and I just when I came back, some people were like, "Oh, cool," but for the most part, I was like, "Oh, where's this guy been?" Like, and
Yeah.
whatever. Like
Time is such a blip for everything,
yes. So I really think I'm coming home to like a parade.
especially back then. Social media was not what it was. We had Facebook, but this was, what year was this?
This was 2012. So when I got back is when I got Instagram for the first time.
Yeah, and it was like those really filtered, like lo-fi hi-fi pictures that we were
Yeah,
all posting that were not a big deal, that were getting 4 likes. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it wasn't this big social media. Nobody was DMing, nobody was posting stories. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was and we thought we were addicted to Facebook back then. This was
Yeah,
something
Facebook was everything.
this
I
was
was on
something
Tumblr.
totally. Yeah, say I think I had a
Yeah.
Tumblr page, or I know I had a Tumblr page for a project I was doing too. So it's like it was a very different social media. So you could have been gone, and somebody who was maybe an acquaintance might not even have known you were gone for as long as you were
Yeah.
gone. You know what I mean? So that is so wild. Thank you for sharing it. When I tell you I've never heard a story like that, I have never heard a story like that. And it is interesting because I have been thinking a lot about fear lately and how fear cripples people. There's just there could be even if it's one little task that we know we need to get done for some reason, it's like this fear inside of us that we can't get it done. And to follow such a brave and terrifying and elephant in the room, you're not just some like white dude who's being a crazy white dude biking across the country. Like the threat for you and the danger for you is different. It's different. And you put yourself in a very vulnerable situation. And so that is really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that. So actually, this is and then what happens after that? This, of course, there's tons more of the story. And
Yeah.
so what Jolie and I ended up doing was spending the next 5 years. We built a one-man musical about that tour.
Wow.
Um, we spent a long time working on it. I wrote original songs for it that I call like blues rap songs that I like
Yeah.
learned. I learned to compose music to do that, and like I kind of wrote like, what if Neil Young made a rap album? Like that's what this song. And then we did this show a couple times. We debuted it and ran it a couple times, and some people saw it, but I've never. That kind of ended. So that debuted in 2017, and it kind of ended there. I've not done much with it since. I kind of dream about in the next 2-3 years doing a little run of it here in New York, and then like trying to film it as a special and seeing if
Yeah,
somebody wants to buy it, because I think it's really cool
it is. It's really unique.
show. Yeah.
The story itself is really unique. And knowing all of that about you, so we knew each other acquaintance wise through the comedy community. I feel like for the past year or so, we've been forming more of a friendship, which has been really nice. And seeing and supporting each other, and like game recognizing game, hustle recognizing hustle. Like we're seeing that in each other, and it's been really cool. But I hadn't listened to your music before.
Mm-mm.
I knew you as a improvising rapper for North Coast, which anyone who doesn't know the improv team North Coast, they have been around for as long as I can remember, and they are easily the best hip hop improv team that there is that I know of. I can't even name another one, but just one of the best teams of all time, especially on the indie scene. Like you guys you kill it. So please check them out if you ever have a show. People should check that out. And you also have a podcast with North Coast, and you have your
Mm-hmm.
own podcast, which I've listened to, but I hadn't listened to your music. So I've been spending this past week listening to your music, and I would describe it as bluesy. I got very much, it's funny that you mentioned New Orleans. I was getting like very New Orleans vibes. I
Cool.
was also getting there's like an innocence and a kindness and a sweetness to your music, and then you flip it on its head.
Mm.
It's like
Okay, that's cool.
there's something about you that's just so like kind, and this guy is warm and safety, and you're like, oh, Precious Gorgeous, which is your artist name, your rapper name, your singer name. Precious Gorgeous, he is Precious Gorgeous. We just love him, and we just want to hug him. Like there is that side of you, and then you have messages that you particularly, I'm just gonna give me 1 second to pull up
Mm.
your album list, because I listened to all three of them, and I found all three of them to be so different from each
Yeah.
other. Um, 1 second. This is why I do everything on a notebook. A phone to me is just
Mm-mm-mm.
like a bunch of folders, and I can't deal with it. Now your first album,
Um,
that was a pun, right? Trying to get my live together because it was all of a
yeah,
live album. Um,
yeah.
so I have some favorite quotes from there.
Okay.
One of the quotes I found, your lyrics are just so rich, and one of the quotes that I thought was great was weighing how much it hurts against how good it might feel. I found that to be a very powerful quote because sometimes in life we do say, like, oh, I know this is bad for me. I know this is going to hurt me, but it feels so good. John
Yeah.
Mellencamp said that too.
Or
Hurt so good.
or the inverse, like just what you were saying about fear, knowing that something would be really good for you, but because it'll hurt in the immediate, you're like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another one. How do I how do you let go to let the judgment pass to get to the goods? I thought
What?
that was one of the quotes from, I don't remember, I didn't write what song it was from. I was just writing the quotes as I went,
Yeah.
and the ones
I
that
don't
spoke to me.
remember saying that. Damn, that's wild.
That's powerful. And this
Yeah.
one was my absolute favorite. I actually wrote, I may tattoo this on me because I love it. I trust laughs from the belly. That was
Uh
that was my
oh, that's cool.
that was my favorite one because that is the best way to connect with people is through laughter. Like
Mm,
true belly laughter, that like laughter you can't, that's just infectious. So, and
wow.
also you said this is a very specific question, but you said that Teddy Riley is your favorite producer.
Yes. Yeah,
No,
yeah. He's my favorite hip hop producer. Yeah. Yeah.
No Diggity is my favorite song of all time.
Really?
Of all time, yeah. Did you watch the halftime show with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg?
Sure, yeah.
Do you remember that split second? Because I just feel like there's so many people who watched that halftime show that didn't get it or didn't appreciate it. Do you remember the moment when Dr. Dre got on the piano and he started to play the beginning of Don't Leave Me? He just
Oh,
started to play the intro of it.
I don't know if I remember that. I remember him on the piano keys doing a lot of stuff because I remember him playing Still Dre on there.
Yes. And then, but before he played Still Dre, he played the intro, just like the beginning, the
Oh,
beginning of,
yes. Yeah.
and I was like, oh, Blackstreet.
Wow.
This, and I just,
Yeah.
Teddy Riley, Blackstreet. I thought that was a very good homage. I was wondering if maybe you also noticed that homage because I
Oh,
appreciated it a
no.
lot.
I'm not a completist, although I do know a lot of Teddy Riley because one of those albums you're talking about, one of them is a mixtape that is just like it's just a bunch of Teddy Riley beats that I just stole and I
Uh
just
huh.
wrote my own original songs over them. So I am pretty well versed in Teddy Riley now because of that experience. But yeah, that's so interesting that you picked up on that. That's makes me thank you for listening to that music and for being interested in it. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I know that moment that you're talking about as well. That's yeah,
It just sent
I do
chills
remember
up
that.
my spine. I thought it was like, oh my God, what a Dr. Dre is so rich, and Teddy Riley, him working with Teddy Riley. And I just think Blackstreet didn't get enough time on the airwaves. They certainly
Yeah.
didn't. They
Teddy
could have,
Riley is he's so underappreciated because with
so
no Teddy
underappreciated.
Riley, we don't get Pharrell, we don't get Missy, we don't get Timberland
Exactly.
because he left New York to open a studio in Virginia
Yep.
and mentored all these Virginians. We don't get Pusha T, we don't get the clips. We probably don't get a lot of stuff beyond just like the great music that Teddy Riley made. You know, I don't know what it is about his stuff, but it's just like it hits me right where I live. I love Teddy
Me
Riley. I
too.
love that
Me too.
era.
And I thought that was
Yeah.
such a specific producer to mention, in like just being like, this is a producer that I love so much, and because I just feel like nobody's talking about Teddy Riley. Why aren't we talking
Mhm.
more about Teddy Riley? So I really appreciate that. And I also, while I was listening to your music, I was thinking how many of us in the artist world, especially in the artist world where we're not mainstream artists just yet, even though that is the goal for a lot of us, not for everyone, but for a lot of us, how many of us as underground independent artists are not supporting our friends in the ways we should be, right? Or we're not supporting the people in our communities the way we should be, right? Like I've known that you've had music out, but I never put it on until I was like, oh, I'm going to have him on my show soon. I should probably listen to what he's about. And then I find all this music of yours that's just like prolific and different. And every track is like got its own vibration and its own personality. And I just think knowing that about you and knowing that about people in our community, anybody listening, like just support the people around you because you will find gems. You will find gems.
I really agree. I was actually talking with my roommate about that last night. His name is Jared Bates. He did some
Mm-hmm.
improv. He's also clown. He travels the world doing clown shows.
Uh-huh.
And we were just talking about that. And I was talking about a little bit about this ethos that I have, which is I don't feel bad about that people don't support one another per se. Like I'd rather you have found my music the way you did, which was like you were like, oh, I'm gonna have him on my show. Let me look into it because I feel like rather than because of duty, you were like, oh, let's see what this is about. And you
Mm,
were able to form your own connection to it, which I think is stronger than a sense of like, well, let me just support this guy. I really do think it's the job of the artist. It's like this is a quote I say, and it may not be right, but I
right.
believe this. Like, you know how they say in court the burden of proof is on the state. The
No, I
the
didn't,
burden
but
of
now I do.
okay, like the burden of proof is on the state, right? The burden of interest is on the artist. It's our job to be interesting and make something exciting for people to want to listen to it. I think that's part of our
Yeah.
job, even for our even for our immediate peers, which also like, you know, all due respect, you're not my audience, you're another artist. Like I'm trying to reach people who can't make art, who
Right.
don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as much as I'm glad to have you listen to my music, and but like but I was saying to my friend last night because I was talking about just this, which is like all the improvisers I know who are just now really getting to the like myself into the podcast space,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is really important because I have a quiet vendetta against stand-ups because they are so smart to take up all this like podcast real estate and use it to market and brand themselves.
Yeah.
And improvisers are just figuring that out for themselves.
Right.
And so I'm really like, oh, I think it's a good thing to like make an effort to, I call it, instead of like support one another, I call it keep the family close. Because I have a
Yeah.
very like fraternal feeling about other artists, particularly other comedians, particularly other improvisers and clowns. And so like I'm very much like anything if I can show up to a show, if I
Yeah.
can post somebody's thing, if I can, you know, I mean, whatever I can do to be supportive, I want to do that to help use whatever platform I have to boost my friends and so on and
Yes.
so forth. I don't even know if that's the best way to do it, but I do. I have a similar ethos to you. I call it keep the family close because I
Yeah.
really feel like, you know, for those of us who are, you know, you're 10 years plus in, like I consider we're lifers, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, and so I'm like, I want to do whatever I can to offer what I've got to my peers and celebrate what they're doing, and not even out of kindness, just like it's a lot of it's just practical. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it is.
Like,
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, it is practical. And that it's the same thing with like going to a show of a friend and you're like, who is, that's a great word, like a lifer of a friend who, maybe 5 or 6, even 7 years ago, you knew each other, but you weren't really friends. But then as the years go on, you watch people fall off and it makes the people
mm,
who've been in it the longest, you're kind of like, oh, I see you. Like, we're still
yes,
on this lifeboat together. I do have a
hmm,
Tuesday night off. I will come to your show. I would love to. So that is that is yeah, we're in agreement there. And
love it.
I love what you said too, because I wasn't thinking about it that way, that you would rather someone found your music organically, because I'm just thinking like everybody just listen to each other and support each other,
I
be
think
best
that's
friends.
beautiful as well.
but
Yeah,
but you're right, because like what happy surprises to find when you're like, okay, you know what, it's time I give this the attention that it deserves. Let me sit down and listen to his music, or let me sit down and take their art in. and see what comes of it. And then next thing you know, you're like, I'm bobbing on the subway and I haven't looked at my phone in 30 minutes. And you're like, oh, I've actually been listening to the words and taking everything in. So thank you for making great music. Everyone should go check it out. I also got like, I'm a big fan of the Roots. I felt very much like Roots vibes. I felt Outcast vibes. I felt Janis Joplin vibes. All of the above. I really loved it. So can you please tell everyone where they can find you, follow you? Your episode will be out Monday the 15th, this upcoming Monday. So if you have any shows after Monday the 15th that you'd like to plug, please do so.
Yeah, I know that I'm doing a show with my friend BS. It'll be on my social media. So I just advise people to follow my social media. I'm doing a show with him, I think, excuse me, in Brooklyn. He's another rapper and he runs a school. He's one of the best rappers in Brooklyn. He teaches people to rap and freestyle. This school is called Freestyle Fitness. I'll hopefully be teaching some songwriting classes there this summer in his school. It's like an online school, rapping school. So people can, if they look up at Precious Gorgeous Ralph on Instagram, they can find me there. My website is preciousgorgeous.com. You can find all info about me there. I'm dropping a single called Bret Hart, named after the wrestler Bret Hart, on May 23rd. So if people go to preciousgorgeous.com and pre-save that, that would really be great.
Okay.
This is an experimental new record that I'm putting out. So that record that you listen to with the live band, I think I said I composed all that music and co-produced it with my friend Alex Warnquist, who's the band leader. And so this new record, I composed it all myself, but it's produced a very different way. It is not the full band.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of more of an experimental record, but I think it's a really fun record. And the first record is Bret Hart. So I'm going to be promoting that for the next few weeks. And I really am proud of that song. And so if people want to go to preciousgorgeous.com, they can pre-save that. I have a show, I believe, on the 29th with BS. Let me look at my calendar and make sure that date. It's the 27th. The 27th at 117 Grattan Street. So somewhere in Bushwick.
Okay.
I'm performing. It might be, I'm not sure if that's Pine Box Rock Shop or where, but it's 117 Grattan Street. It'll be on my social media.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, Ralph, I cannot thank you enough for sharing such an amazing wild night, which was a wild month.
Yeah, wild 8 months.
Wild 8 months. And you and I will talk soon. This was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was so great. I'm such a fan of everything you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Right back at you. You and I will talk soon. All right. Bye.
All right.